Hello, it's Jim Muehlhausen, author of the 51 Errors, and welcome to the 51 Errors Coaching Club. The first error that I want to cover is fatal error number 1, hiring your competitors' rejects. Now, I want to review this. This is a complicated error, and it's got a lot of meat to it. So the first step in not hiring your competitors' rejects is to give up on hiring experienced people. I think that's what this really stems from, is our desire to want to buy talent and not build it ourselves. So we want to create a light switch that we can go turn on and off to create great talent. Step 2, we want to create a test to discover the aptitude that you need, and you're probably going to find this from your existing people. Step 3, we're going to find an easy way to screen candidates. Now, I love, and I use personally in my own business, what I call a video FAQ. Shooting a series of videos, not unlike what I'm doing now, putting them in a neat little holder, or even using YouTube, if you want, to video screen candidates. Now, the theory behind this is pretty simple, and that is that people that are a good fit are A, more likely to want to work for your company and for you, and 2, are going to do a better job once they're on there. And so I guess that inherent in what I'm saying is give up on trying to hire people that aren't a good fit. So if all we're trying to do is find good fits, my theory is let's throw the information out there about the company, and no better way to do that than video, especially you as the owner of the company talking to each candidate. And the internet really makes this possible. What that's going to do is that's going to run away the bad candidates, which is okay. You've got to let go of that in my mind. And it should do a better job of hooking the good candidates into wanting to work for you. Fourth step in this process is to have a solid training program in place once we have hired these people. Now, let me give you a real-life example of something that I worked on many years ago. The setting was the late 90s. And if you remember the late 90s, it was very difficult to hire just about anyone of talent. The $6 people took $8 jobs. The $8 people took $10 jobs. $10 people took $15 jobs, etc., etc., etc. So it was a very difficult hiring environment at this time. With that as a backdrop, this poor owner had over a 200% turnover. I'm guessing no one would want to sign up for that type of a program. So here he sat with a 200% turnover, about a 50-person manufacturing company in an inner city. So he had a difficult time hiring quality people with his geography, with his pay scale, which was pretty low. And the only thing that he had going for him was that whenever he ran an ad, he did get a lot of applicants, probably a couple hundred people each time that he ran an ad. The problem was that there was a lot of bad people. So 200% turnover, not a lot of good candidates, really could not effectively bring people in. And of course, this led to the guys, it was an all-male environment, really holding him hostage and demanding raises that they didn't deserve. And of course, they'd always threaten to walk during the busy time because it was a pretty cyclical business on top of it. So it really was not a fun situation for the owner. So here is an example of a process that we created that really rectifies this problem. The first thing that we did was, this was pre-Monster and Career Builder, so we ran an ad in the paper. And in some positions, especially those blue-collar, low-paid positions, the paper is still a viable option. Those people may not be online. You need to ask yourself, where are my potential candidates looking for jobs? And it could be a street sign or a billboard. It could be online like most jobs. But we ran this ad, and what it claimed was, we said, pay up to this. That attracted a lot of candidates. Secondly, immediate job interview granted. Now, that was really important because more people will show up if you say that. That's a little job hiring trick. Second step, when people came through, what we made them do was, number 1, they had to fill out the application on premises. And the reason for that was, if you've ever hired blue-collar people, you already know the answer to this, is you want to make sure that they could read and write. In this business, there was a bill of materials. They did need some reading and writing skills. It wasn't just shoveling a ditch. And so we made a decision that part of the aptitude that someone had to have was reading and writing skills. So we made them fill it out on the spot, not take it home and have somebody do it for them. Then what we did was we gave them a mechanical aptitude test. Now, a little bit of history. What happened was we had found that the 5 best guys in the shop, and as I said, it was all guys in this case, had scored it very well, 38 out of 40 or better for all 5 of these people. So what we said was, aha, we now have found an aptitude test that we can discover whether people are going to turn into good performers. That here was the cream that had risen to the top. They all scored very well on this test. And not coincidentally, the shop manager, the highest of all 5 of those, scored 40 out of 40 on this test. So They turned in their application. They were immediately given this test. And we had a little saying. We said 34 or out the door. And what that meant was that we found that if they didn't score 34 on this test, that they were not going to be successful out there in the shop, because people of high aptitude learn very fast. That's the cream rising to the top. If you ask yourself, who are the best people that I have? Ask yourself, did cream rise to the top, or did you steal those two from your competitors? I already know the answer. You didn't steal them from your competitors. Cream rose to the top, and cream is aptitude in this case. So you give them the test, 34 or out the door. If they scored 34, they were given their immediate job interview, which meant the nearest person walked them into an office, sat them down, interviewed them, or pretended to interview them in this case, because this wasn't really the interview. I would make a contention, this is pretty bold, that you should not need to do a talk across the desk interview with almost anyone, because it really isn't gauging the skill that they're going to perform the job with. What it's gauging is their ability to talk to you. And so if their ability to talk to you, maybe it's a sales position, has something to do with this. Now, obviously, these points that I'm talking about are more geared toward entry-level positions or bottom-level positions, not senior vice presidents of sales and marketing. That said, I still think you should be able to do the bulk of the interview without just jabbing with the person, because really all it gauges is how well they talk to you. Okay. So, back to this process. Now they said, here's the interview, talk for 5 minutes, and every single candidate was told, come back Friday at 3:30. If it was Friday at 1, it was come back in 2 hours. And at 3:30 on Friday, what we had done was shot a 5-minute video. Here's how to assemble this particular very popular part number, putting little O-rings in and little metal bushings in. It wasn't hard, but it was kind of the basics of the job. And so they were walked in groups of 4 after all seeing the same video, out into the shop, and it said, ready, set, go, 15 minutes, how many of these parts can you assemble in groups of 4? So we put them through a test effectively. And whoever made the most parts, the shop manager was there, and he gauged the quality of the assembly, because sometimes people went fast but didn't do a good job. So the balance of quality and speed, and what happened was it completely turned the process objective instead of subjective. Before, a guy would get in there, talk to the owner, and it sounded good, he looked good, he kind of looked the part, intuition takes over, and that intuitive hiring process that we all use led to some bad hires. This case, what happened was, number one, ended up with a whole bunch of women. You know, all these guys, of course, thought, well, women can't do this job. It's big, strong men with big iron parts. Well, guess what? That was wrong. When an objective test was created, women did much better than some of the men, where you could look and say, we would have hired that guy, and he stunk once you put them through a test. So it made the decision process much easier and made it objective instead of subjective. Then if you needed 3 people, you hired the 3 best. If you needed 5, you hired 5. If you needed 1, you hired 1. Now here's the results of this program. First of all, turnover went to 33% from over 200%. Secondly, it made the owner's life significantly more sane. No more threats from people, no more raises. It actually lowered pay. And you could imagine what the owner of a business that has 200% turnover does with all of his day. He hires people and trains people and manages that revolving door. What happened was the revolving door stopped. The turnover went to a manageable rate. And now think about the process that I just described. I always say the owner's job is to make the cookie cutter. The employees stamp out the cookies. Before, we had an owner that was putting all of his time in a technical role in the business, not getting anything big done. What we ended up with was, how much work did the owner do in the example I just provided? None. He didn't interview him. He didn't hand him the application. He didn't do the sit in front of the video. He didn't walk him out in the shop. He took himself completely out of this process. What he did do was make the cookie cutter. He worked with shooting the videos. He scripted the videos. He did all that upfront work. And then his people stamped out the cookies with the cookie cutter that he made. So it was a great success story. It was a great process. So here's my challenge to you. What do? Think of a position, it may be a sales position, that you hire a couple people a year. And I want you to find a test. You can test for sales. One of the best things I've heard for people testing on sales is if they do cold calling, make them cold call for an hour. Make them sit in front of the phone, record it, listen to it, be there. Yes, I know it's a little harsh, but the point is, it's going to be harsh day one on the job when they do it. Why not find out that they're going to stink before you hire them? And that's really the point. Find out they stink before you hire them. So we want to create a screening process, find an aptitude test. You can go to places like Gneal or Wonderlic.com, and they have some tests, but my favorites are the ones you make yourself. Need an aptitude test? Come up with one. Get a drill, have them drill some holes. Simulate the job. Have them file. I work with some doctors' offices. They actually have people file because they always complain we can't get people to put the files in the right spots. Well, let's give them a 5-minute test to do that. So let's keep this simple. Let's chunk it and break it into pieces. The first thing you're going to do is decide the position. The second thing is you're going to find this aptitude test. Either find one that you can buy or find one that you make yourself, and then you're going to incorporate it into your hiring process and you're going to screen people out. Now, I'm going to fast forward. Every time that we broke that 34 out the door, we got burned. It didn't work. If they didn't have enough aptitude, they didn't learn fast. And as an additional aside, if you hire people with aptitude, they'll get better a lot faster. In this example that I just gave, we used to think it took 2 years for a guy to get good and do the hard stuff. Well, it turned out it took more like 4 months, not 2 years, because once we started hiring high aptitude people, they got better a lot faster, and you'll find out the same thing. So thanks so much for being part of my coaching club. I'll look forward to talking to you next week.